A weaponized Jim Jordan launches into Congress. The new Congress, this one led by Kevin McCarthy, made a lot of promises, and we're going to see if they deliver. One of the biggest ones was H.R. 12, where the Republicans say that they're going to be investigating the weaponization of government. You can see it passed the House. H.R. 12, 220 yays to 211 nays, all the nays coming from the Democratic side, Republicans voting in favor on this thing. And right up top, it tells us this was a subcommittee on oversight of government investigations, right? So all this will be housed under the Judiciary Committee, which is led by Jim Jordan. And so we're going to go through this, right? There was a lot of debate before it passed. A lot of Republicans really want this thing through so they can start their investigations in full. We're going to listen to McCarthy. We've got Jim Jordan. We've got Lauren Boebert. We've got Scott Perry. We've got Thomas Massey, one of my favorite. And they're all opining about why this is one of the most important things that this new Congress is going to be doing. And I think that it is true that this is one of the most important things this new Congress is going to be doing, especially because they are still a little bit hamstrung with a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House. So for these next 2 years, we better see some serious investigations and see them come hard and fast. We'll also check in with the Democrats because they're very upset about this. These are some fun clips. They're basically just crying against the wall. They can't really do much of anything. And they realize that they're going to get their own version of a January 6th committee breathing right down their necks, just worse than Joe Biden. And so there's going to be a lot of fun clips there before we take a look at the actual resolution that was passed. So we're going to go into all of this. Now let's start at the top. What is this thing that passed, right? It is the Subcommittee on Oversight of Government Investigations. And I want to just explain, right? We're used to watching a lot of government committees on this channel here, okay? We watch all these bureaucrats sit around on their little high tables looking down at, like, for example, the big tech platform, right? Jack Dorsey comes in here. Were you censoring Americans, Jack? He says, no, I wasn't. And they go, well, that's good enough for me. I guess we're done here. Why don't we bring in Mark Zuckerberg next? And Mark says, Senator, no, we're not censoring MAGA extremists. Turns out they all are, right? And so it's one of those things. But this one might be a little bit different. We take a look at this fella. His name is Rep. Dan Bishop, and he posted this on Twitter January 10th, right after this passed. He said, it's official. We now have a church-style committee to investigate the weaponization of the federal government. Let's get to work. And so you might be thinking, what the heck is the church-style committee? Where did that come from, right? This is something that happened some time ago, and you may not have even been around. I wasn't when the church committee hearings were in effect. And so let's take a quick look at what they're envisioning, right? What do the Republicans want to do, get out of all of this? They say church style. What the heck does that even mean? Well, it goes back to this fella. His name is Frank Church. He is the person who led this committee. So this is kind of going to be like the Jim Jordan, right? This is kind of what Jim Jordan's doing. Let's see if Jim Jordan is up to the task. The church committee, per Wikipedia, you can see they created a final report, which we'll take a quick look at. Church committee, formerly called the United States Senate Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities, was created in 1975. And look, it investigated the abuses by the CIA. Oh, gosh, that sounds great. Also, the NSA, the National Security Agency. Also, the FBI. Woo, woo. And also the IRS. Beautiful. It's like Christmas morning. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. So all of these intelligence agencies back then in the 1970s are being investigated by somebody who's very aggressive called Frank Church. He calls this the year of intelligence in 1975, diving into the intelligence abuses, finding out all sorts of major revelations, including Operation MK Ultra, right? This is official documents. MK Ultra, drugging and torturing unwitting U.S. citizens as part of human experimentation and mind control. Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's our intelligence community out there. And this is back in 1975, mind you. Okay, not here in 2022, where they have algorithms jacked into your frontal cortex. COINTELPRO, which involved the surveillance and the infiltration of American political civil rights organizations. Family Jewels, a CIA program to assassinate foreign leaders. Operation Mockingbird, a systematic propaganda campaign with domestic and foreign journalists operating as CIA assets and dozens of U.S. news organizations providing cover for CIA activity. Are there any parallels to what's going on now specifically? I think so. I mean, we literally have the FBI, Elvis Chan, delete this, delete that. Wow. He's very excited working in Silicon Valley liaisoning with the FBI to the big tech platforms. Same thing. They were even just more open about it. The CIA was probably at least trying to be secretive about it. They were sending emails documenting all of this. Okay, so they're going to be investigating that. That's what this committee is intending to resemble. And this is what they ultimately produced. So you can see here that we got a report, Book 1. This was the final report of the Select Committee called the Church Committee, right? It's been dubbed as the Church Committee from Frank Church. This came out back in 1976. So in other words, the intelligence agencies have been, a little bit problematic in this country for quite some time. And Congress has been trying to figure out how to get a handle on them from the very beginning. On January 27th, the Senate established a select committee to study the intelligence activities of the United States. After 15 months of intensive work, I am pleased to submit to the Senate this volume of the final report. The inquiry arises out of allegations of abuse and improper activities by the intelligence agencies of the United States and great public concern that Congress must take action to bring the intelligence agencies under the constitutional framework. Back in 1975, the intelligence agencies were running wild. Do you think that they're running more wild now or less as our government has become even more big and bloated and disgusting and out of control? And there's more technology, and there's more Congress people who don't even know how to turn on a computer, let alone like a Facebook post. Okay, we saw that from those hearings. So all of this was taking place for a long time. Now, it was an aggressive, actually, committee. There was some interesting people on the committee. So if you scroll down here, it was fairly balanced. From Wikipedia, they tell us you know some of these people, guys like Barry Goldwater, Walter Mondale. Right? Walter Mondale ran for president. Barry Goldwater would be a hard right extremist by today's standards. But they put him on that committee. They put some balance on the committee so that there could be an actual investigation. Unlike what we had out of our loser J6 committee, was just basically a giant facade that produced actually nothing. So this will produce, evidently, if this is a church-style committee, a lot. We're looking forward to seeing what they come up with. But they're going, look at this document, right? 135 pages. We just keep going. 366. Look at this. Oh my goodness. It's out of control. 649 pages. And you have appendices, different statements. And I think this is just book 1, right? So there's 6 books here. The CIA's internal controls it's a full stinking audit of the entire intelligence agencies. Amazing. Can't wait for it. Very excited to see what the Republicans come up with and what that looks like once it gets under full swing. Here's just a quick example. I found a couple clips of what the church committees sounded like if we want to take a little trip back in history.
We have a particular obligation to examine the NSA in light of its tremendous potential for abuse. It has the capacity to monitor the private conversations of American citizens without the use of a bug or attack.
Look at this date up here, 1975. They're complaining about the NSA being able to listen to your conversations. There's no cell phones. There's no Facebook. People aren't on email in 1975. This is just the existing infrastructure before all of this surveillance technology is layered on top of it.
In light of its tremendous potential for abuse, it has the capacity to monitor the private conversations of American citizens without the use of a bug or attack. The interception of international communication signals sent through the air is the job of NSA, and thanks to modern technological developments, it does its job very well. The danger lies in the ability of the NSA to turn its awesome technology against domestic communications.
You're kidding. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't turn their ultra power back on America. Well, kind of turns out that there was nothing really stopping them from doing that. They dragged the head of the NSA in here, and you see in this friendly gif here, you see a little bit of a gulp going on in this guy's throat. We're in big trouble. We're in big trouble right now. Hopefully he doesn't ask us this question coming up. But guess what he did? So this question comes out. This fella, Lieutenant General Lou Allen, brought in front of the church committee, asked questions like, is there anything that stops you people in the intelligence community from doing whatever you want? Is there any law that prohibits you, that reins you in?
With respect to wholly domestic communications, is there any statute that prohibits your interception thereof, or is it merely a matter of your internal executive branch directives?
My understanding, Mr. Schwartz, is that at least the National Security Council Intelligence Directive defines our activities as foreign communications, and that we have adopted a definition for foreign communications consistent with the Communications Act of 1934, and therefore I think that is the...
All right, but you believe you're consistent with the statutes, but there isn't any statute that prohibits your interception of domestic communications.
I believe that's correct.
I believe that's correct. Ooh, right. So the question is there anything that stops you from doing whatever you want? He says, well, I mean, we get our directives from these other things. Okay, those other things. And he says, well, we do things consistent with those directives. That's okay. That's great. And we're glad that you do that. Is there anything that mandates, that prohibits you from doing things differently from those standards? No, there isn't. No, there isn't. I believe that's all that we have.
With the Communications Act of 1934, and therefore I think that is the...
All right, but you believe you're consistent with the statutes, but there isn't any statute that prohibits your interception of domestic communications.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so that's what was happening back there in the 1970s. We're looking forward to seeing something like that again. And so let's see what the Republicans are doing today and now. Kevin McCarthy sat down with Sean Hannity, and he was asked about this. Hey, Kevin, now that you're in charge, what are you going to be doing with your gavel? Investigating the Democrats?
87,000 IRS agents.
We promised to do that.
We promised to do it. We made it in our...
Yeah, that's great that it got passed.
In our commitment to America, which you've talked a lot about, and we'll check it off as they go.
I have my own copy.
Yeah, but you know what else we did next?
What?
We just passed the church style committee that Jim Jordan will run.
Church style.
Looking at the weaponization of government. You know what we just passed right now? A select committee on China. And we got 146 Democrats to vote with us.
China.
Pelosi would never allow this. I had an agreement with her, and she backed away the night before. So you want to bring jobs back from China to America. You want to...
All right, so they go on rambling about whatever else. But the question that I had is about this church-style committee. And the man who's going to be in charge of it is right here next up. Jim Jordan is the person who leads the House Judiciary Committee, and Jim Jordan is now given the green light. Rep. Jim Jordan explains why this new committee to investigate government weaponization of their entities against American citizens is so important.
A ploy. It's not a ploy when the Department of Justice treats parents as terrorists, moms and dads who are simply showing up at a school board meeting to advocate for their son or daughter. A ploy. It's not a ploy when the FBI pays Twitter $3 million, not one, not two, $3 million to censor American citizens. It's not a ploy when the...
And that was underpaying them. They did a lot more work than that. They did, I mean, censoring, America and delivering certain political outcomes. That's very valuable. You can't pay for that.
The Department of Homeland Security tries to set up a disinformation governance board because we all know that the Department of Homeland Security can tell what's good speech and what is bad speech, what's you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that was singing Jangy Jankowicz. The something, 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 gonna censor you, I'm atrocious. Listen to my horrible voice, expialidocious. Remember, very strange woman. She was going to be monitoring your speech to make sure that you sang appropriately when it's government singing time.
I tell you what, dozens of whistleblowers who've come talk to Republican staff on the Judiciary Committee don't think this is a ploy. That's why they came to talk to us. They know how serious this is. The former Democrat chair of the Judiciary Committee is in the press today saying we're going to fight this tooth and nail. This is political. But meanwhile, the former Democrat chair of the Intelligence Committee pressured Twitter to censor a journalist.
Adam Schiff, pencil neck.
You've got to be kidding me. This is the most important. This is about the First Amendment, something you guys used to care about. And I actually hope we could get bipartisan agreement on protecting the First Amendment, the 5 rights we enjoy as Americans under the First Amendment. Your right to practice your faith, your right to assemble, right to petition the government, freedom of press, freedom of speech. Every single one's been attacked in the last 2 years.
True.
Government was telling people they couldn't go to church just a few years ago. Your right to assemble, your right to petition the government. The Democrats kept the Capitol closed. You couldn't, as a citizen, couldn't come to your Capitol that you pay for to address your member of Congress, to redress your grievances because Nancy Pelosi wouldn't let you in. Freedom of the press, I just told you what the head of the Intel Committee tried to do to a journalist.
Shameful,
the most
pencil
important
neck.
right we have, though, is your right to talk. Because if you can't talk, you can't practice your faith. You can't share your faith. You can't petition your government. The right to speak is the most important, and that's what they're going after.
It strips you of your humanity. If you don't get to verbalize and share your opinion, share your ideas, participate in anything, if you can't share the product of your mind, that is stripping away your humanity. And they're trying to do that. They're trying to make sure that it's very difficult to think a certain way and talk a certain way and say certain things and do certain activities and join certain causes and participate in certain events and go certain places and buy certain things. They are trying to build little woke prisons for everybody else. And they're using the federal government to do it. Jim Jordan is back in charge, baby. Let's check back in.
And that's why we've had dozens of whistleblowers come talk to us. We want to focus on that because we want it all to stop. We want the double standard to stop. This idea that if you're a pro-life activist, you're going to get your door kicked in, you're going to get arrested and handcuffed in front of your 7 kids and your spouse for simply praying in front of an abortion clinic and telling the guy who was harassing your son to knock it off. You're going to have the FBI raid your home. But the protest that went on at Supreme Court justices' homes in the aftermath of the leak of the Dobbs opinion, no problem there. Americans are sick and tired of it. And what we want, we don't want to go after anyone. We just want it to stop. And we want to respect the First Amendment to the Constitution that the greatest country in the world has. That's what this committee is all about, and that's what we're going to focus on. That's what we're going to do.
Amen. Absolutely right. It is important, and that's all anybody's asking for is just even playing field. Free speech for everybody. Democrats can have it too. Nobody gets silenced. Nobody gets shut up. Everybody gets a seat at the table. But they don't want to play that way for some reason. Very strange, because if their ideas were powerful and they carried weight and they were factually accurate and they could support them, they wouldn't need to shut up their opponents because the facts would just stand on their own 2 feet. But they're not very competent in their arguments or their beliefs or their ideas, which is why they resort to censorship. It's the same pattern that you've seen historically throughout the world. Jim Jordan is on the case. We're very excited about it. Now, other people who have Jordan's flank, Thomas Massey. Now, he's asking a very important question of the Democrats. And, he's looking over there to those in the minority now, which is a very fun thing to watch. Thomas Massey asking the Democrats, why are you guys hiding all of this inquiry? Can't we just see what is going on with the intelligence community? I mean, what's to hide?
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserved. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to my very good friend, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey.
Thomas Massey.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Oklahoma. The very words expressed by those opposed to this committee demonstrate the dire need for this committee. We've gone 4 years without oversight. And to quote Shakespeare, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. Those who argue against transparency may have something to hide. So I listened very closely when I heard the former chairman of the Intelligence Committee give the reason that maybe we shouldn't ask for this information from the intelligence community. He said the intelligence community, after this committee, may be reluctant to share information with Congress, that Congress needs to craft legislation. I would suggest...
Yeah, because the intelligence community operates what appears to many of us as outside observers outside of really any oversight whatsoever. Definitely not congressional oversight, because we saw how that worked. We've seen this before. When Republicans were in the minority, there were Senate hearings, and they called Christopher Wray from the FBI, the director, into Congress. And they said, hey, Mr. Wray, we've got some questions for you. We are Congress. We do have some authority in this country still. And we are the people who get to dictate certain things that happen. We have oversight, right? You have to answer questions from us. He answered no questions. They took a lunch break. They said, okay, we'll see you after lunch. And he said, I have a plane to catch. I have somewhere to be. Okay, it's on film. He said this to Congress. And he had to go on vacation. He was like flying to his second house in Florida or something like that. It was the most ridiculous thing. He walks up and Chuck Grassley's like, well, I guess you're the FBI. What can I do about this? I'm just a dumb old senator. I guess I'll just sit here. And it's ridiculous. So they don't want any oversight. Why? Because they have total control of these agencies, and they're using them to maximum extent to gain ultimate benefit in all of these political battles. Obviously, they don't want anybody to come in there and take a look at that.
If they are reluctant, they are disqualified from holding these positions. If they have grown so big that they are no longer accountable to the branch of government that created them, that funds them, and it is responsible for their oversight, then they need to be hemmed in.
No more
I
airplanes.
implore my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to populate this committee with serious Democrats. I know there are some over there. I've worked with them. We've co-sponsored amendments on privacy.
If you say so, Thomas.
Over the past decade. Some of them have passed. Please populate it with serious members. Please, to my colleagues on this side of the aisle, give us the resources we need to do this job. And if I may rebut one thing that's been said on the other side of the aisle about ongoing criminal investigations, he says it's unprecedented that Congress would engage in an investigation that involves an ongoing criminal investigation. What was the January 6th committee?
Idiots.
This is not unprecedented. It's what you've wasted millions of dollars on over the past 2 years.
Yeah, now it's our turn, punks.
I urge adoption of this rule and support for the committee that it will create. Now yield back the balance of my
Gentleman
time.
yields back.
Yeah, it stinks, man. They should have thought about that before they started weaponizing the federal government against all of their opponents. And we said this when they were doing this. We said, okay, the pendulum's going to swing back and forth. I'm going to say that, drag that phrase out of the closet again. Pendulum swings back and forth every time. Now, the big question, of course, is whether this will sort of breach the bubble, because the Democrats still control the media by and large. And it's very difficult for these stories to sort of break out of the shell. So while every day you'll have CNN, MSNBC, you'll have all of the, the other 3-letter channels, NBC, ABC, CBS, all of them, right? They all get in lockstep. We've seen the copy and paste journalism videos out there. They just literally, they get one script. All of the news anchors read it every time on the nightly news, and they don't talk about anything. For example, take a look at what happened with Hunter Biden, right? Or take a look at what's happened with the Twitter files. They've done a very nice job, honestly, containing the media, which is why I'm so grateful that you share this show and share our shorts and share the channel and all that stuff, because we're rebuilding informational supply chains to make sure that this story and these stories can penetrate through that bubble. But now that the Republicans can do exactly what the Democrats have done for 2 years, January 6th, oh, Trump, they can do the same thing. And guess what? Now Biden has his own confidential documents to support his crackhead son as well. We've got a whole, smorgasbord of just inquiries that the Democrats are going to be subject to, and they are very unhappy about it. Next up, we've got Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert is saying that this is something that the Democrats should be very familiar with, because for a long time, Democrats have used the government as a tool for their own ends.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In response to the blue anon rhetoric, I rise in favor to H.R. 12 to establish a subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. The authoritarian left has used the full might and authority of the federal government to force its agenda on the American people.
We've been watching it, chronicling
it. Weaponized to pressure private companies to censor conservatives, target parents as domestic tyrants, just simply for caring about their children and their education. Manipulate the American people by declaring Hunter Biden's laptop as Russian disinformation, even failing to inform American citizens about classified documents that a former vice president had in his possession,
and launch
an unwarranted investigation into President Trump's presidential campaign. Mr. Speaker, our Constitution is a contract with the American people and our government. That contract is designed to produce maximum freedom and minimum tyranny for this great country. Sadly, the FBI and the DOJ and many other agencies...
time is expired.
I yield the lady an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady is recognized for 30 seconds.
She was on a roll, too. They had to cut her off, punks.
Sadly, the FBI and the DOJ and many other agencies are violating this contract and working to make the American people subjects rather than free citizens. This committee is essential, and I encourage the creation and the adoption of this resolution. I yield.
Right on, Lauren Boebert. She's dead right about that. The Democrats have been using this as a tool. We have seen it on open display. It's been dropped in 12 different Twitter files up until this point. Many different emails revealed, all sorts of interfacing with the federal government at multiple different levels. So now that the Democrats are facing the prospect that not necessarily, the Republicans are not even coming in here and they're not saying that we're going to do exactly what you did to us to you, right? They're not saying that. Now there's sort of that implied threat there. But really, this is just the investigation phase. We just want to ask questions about this. We want to go and figure out what happened so that it doesn't continue to happen. Because as Lauren said, we do have a constitution and it's supposed to establish a baseline that we do not fall below. The government is not supposed to cross those lines and trample on our constitutional rights. They have. That's in evidence, right? Elon released the literal emails from the FBI. So we carry on. Scott Perry is delivering a big fat "I told you so" back over to the Democrats, and they're very unhappy about this. Here's Scott Perry.
People on important committees in this institution lie on national TV over and over and over again. No consequence. So how many more times, I ask the minority, how many more times do we have to say "I told you so" before you will recognize the overwhelming power and the abuse of power by this federal government? And will you ever do anything about it? You know when you want to do something about it? When you think you have the presidency in 2024 and you try and regain this House, then you're going to be all into it, investigating all your enemies. That's not what the federal government's supposed to be for. It's supposed to protect our civil rights so we don't serve it, so that it serves us. Gentlemen.
All right, so that is Scott Perry, and of course, he is also out there in favor of the bill, which of course certainly did pass the House of Representatives. So we're going to take a look at what the Democrats had to say here next. We've got clips from Schiff. He's very upset about this, does not want it passing at all. We've got Hank Johnson. We've got modern day McCarthy language, Jim McGovern, and we're also going to hear from our friend Jerry Nadler, the waddler, who's been waddling around Congress for about 35 years or so. But now, my friends, before we get there, let's talk about our friends over at 4Patriots. 4Patriots.com is where you can go, because we know a food shortage, it could be coming, even here in the United States. Experts have written about this as recently as July. We've got drought, inflation, new economic policies, and America's food supply is near its breaking point. Just take a look at eggs. Can you find them anywhere? That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriots survival food kits ever. It's not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years super survival food. This stuff is hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kit's compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, they stack easily. We've got different breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. All you have to do is add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4Patriots.com. 4Patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off anything in the store, including this 3-month survival kit. You see it right here. It looks delicious. It's got all sorts of servings. It's outstanding. You can go there. You'll get a famous guarantee from them for an entire year after your order. Free shipping on anything that's over $97. They're called 4Patriots because a portion of every sale goes to charities that support our veterans and their families. And you can go to 4Patriots.com. Use code Robert. Start building your stockpile today. And thank you for supporting our friends over there at 4Patriots. All right. So let's take a look now at what the Democrats had to say in response to this weaponization conversation, because they are very unhappy about this. And we're very familiar with this fella. This is Adam Schiff. Pencil neck watermelon head takes the floor of the House of Representatives to explain why he really doesn't want the Republicans to start investigating his very favorite intelligence agencies.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to the Republican Select Subcommittee to investigate deep state conspiracy theories. And if you
Not conspiracies there, Adam. We have your emails.
Had any doubt about what this committee is really about its true focus, my colleague from Montana just confirmed this is all about deep state nonsense. Republicans claim without merit that this subcommittee will investigate the so-called weaponization of the federal government. But what it's really intended to do is to undermine the legitimate investigation of President Trump's incitement of a violent attack on this building, on this Capitol, on this citadel of democracy.
How is investigating your censorship of election jokes any way related to January 6th? How is your censorship of COVID misinformation in any way related to January 6th?
An investigation that implicates some of the very members of this body who want to sit on that committee.
So Adam Schiff is crying big time now because he realizes that his power, all of that gobbled up authority that he got from the January 6th Select Committee, it's like that ring of Thanos or something, whatever that glove was. It's like it just transfers hands. And he does not like the hand of that, the sound of that at all. And he's not alone. There's other people who are very upset about the possibility that the Republicans will be in control. From Massachusetts, Jim McGovern is saying that the Republicans will be able to do whatever they want with this committee. Like they'll be able to target everybody. Like the Democrats haven't done that for the last 2 years.
The power to target anyone and anything he doesn't like. Anything and anyone he deems unconstitutional, illegal, or unethical. And who decides what's unconstitutional, illegal, or unethical? Mr. Jordan does. So why don't we just...
No, it should be Liz Cheney. No, yeah, give it back to Liz Cheney.
Just be blunt here. Republicans claim to care about law enforcement, but this new committee is about attacking law enforcement.
It is? Why? The Capitol Hill Police? We got questions for them? They don't want to release their reports? They don't want to release the evidence? Right? If a cop doesn't release evidence when you ask for it, does that feel appropriate? Right? Everybody would say, no, that's ridiculous. The cop should release the evidence, right? Clearly somebody did something wrong. Release the evidence. You should release your body cam, right? Most reasonable people agree with that. Even cops. Cops will say, I did everything above board by the book. Here's the evidence. Why is that too much to ask for the Capitol Hill Police? Why is that too much to ask for Congress? From our FBI? Are there national security secrets? Well, they can explain that to us. Well, what about, is that in all 14,000 hours of unreleased video? Or where are these problems?
It's about going after people. It's about destroying people's careers and lives. It's about undermining the Department of Justice, defunding.
They literally wrecked thousands of lives with their J6 inquiry without any regard for the Constitution or due process.
The police and settling scores on behalf of the twice impeached and disgraced former occupant of the Oval Office. The MAGA extremist fringe of the Republican Party will use this committee to push QAnon conspiracy theories and lies from Truth Social. They're going to use it to gin up fake investigations.
Follow me on Truth Social at Robert Govea.
Into non-existent scandals. I think we need to just start calling this the Tinfoil Hat Committee. Speaker McCarthy even changed the language at the
Tinfoil Hat Committee. Well, we'll see. A lot of these so-called conspiracy theories that everybody's been complaining about have all been proven to be true. They've all been confirmed, actually. Not all of them, but a large part of them. I don't want to go so bold as to say every single conspiracy theory has been proven true, but a lot of them have. And a lot of the ones, particularly that these whack jobs have made the subject of their wrath. Turns out they're not so good at actually identifying conspiracy theories. Now, Hank Johnson. This is a fun clip. Now, this guy's got a bunch of zingers. He must have like a team of writers or something. They're pretty amazing. Let's listen. This is taking place on the floor of Congress. Hank Johnson is explaining why he does not want this bill, this resolution, creating a new subcommittee to pass.
From Georgia is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to H-Res 12.
All right, Hank.
The Insurrection Protection Committee.
The Insurrection Protection Committee. That's a good one.
Which Speaker McCarthy, the 21st century McCarthyism, had to agree to last week in order to gain the...
It's not very friendly, these people.
Speakership. So MAGA extremist Republicans forced...
It's like 3 for 3.
As a consequence of getting their vote.
We're not even in 30 seconds in on this, okay? We got insurrection protection, new era McCarthy, MAGA extremism. It's 30 seconds.
The Speaker to promise to create this select committee. And Donald Trump had his hands in it.
Ooh.
Donald Trump had his hands in it last week during this circular firing squad.
Wow.
He was calling the shots, and this will benefit him. This Insurrection Protection Committee is set up to insulate the ex-president along with various MAGA Republicans who are still serving here in the House who are under investigation.
Yeah, so they're going after people like Perry, right? Like Scott Perry. They're saying that he is, he got called into an interview, right? I think by the J6 committee. So the J6 committee goes, it implicates a bunch of House members right, which causes division within the House. So then the balance of power changes. The Republicans take over the committee. They start doing the same things, and they say, well, our committee investigated your committee, and now we're concerned that somebody that we investigated while we were on our committee, who wasn't on our committee but is also in the House, is going to be running their committee and investigating us. So they're saying, because we investigated you first, you shouldn't be allowed to get on your committee and investigate us. This is Congress.
It's here to protect them from that investigation. It's here to disrupt the flow of justice in this country. This is a dangerous, extreme committee that is put in the hands of someone a group of people who even defied congressional subpoenas and refused to come and testify before the January 6th.
Before our fake committee. They weren't cooperating with our fake committee, which, by the way, wasn't even legally constituted. They never bring that up there. But H.R. 503, which was the resolution that was their first committee, was supposed to be 13 members, just like this committee is supposed to be 13 members. 8 Democrats, 5 Republicans. They didn't put any of the Republicans that the Republicans wanted on the committee. So what Pelosi did is just went and picked Kinzinger and Cheney, who aren't even really Republicans, right? They're certainly not in the House anymore. So that tells you a little bit more about their staying power in the Republican Party. They're gone. Nobody even cares about them. They didn't want him on the committee in the first place. So he's going to be blaming and using as justification for keeping a committee, a counter committee not formed as the basis for that is that they didn't respond to his committee. This is so circular, it's hard to even explain. These people are crazy.
Committee. Now they're trying to interfere with Justice Department deliberations on whether or not they should be accused and charged with committing criminal offenses in the lead up to, on January 6th and thereafter. And this is a very dangerous piece of legislation.
Dangerous.
MAGA Republicans are behind it, led by the head election denier in this country, who, by the way, it's a worldwide affair. This is dangerous.
Election denier? Was he talking about Hakeem Jeffries? Because I think that's his person who was in charge.
We must stop it. Vote no on H-Res 12. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from...
All right, so he's done. We've got one more clip from the Democrats. It's our very favorite, Jerry Nadler. We haven't seen him in a long time, but now he's back on this show. Jerry Nadler waddles down to the podium where he delivers a message about the dangers of a new subcommittee that the Republicans control this time, not the Democrats.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this resolution, which appears designed to launch a dangerous and unprecedented attack on our law enforcement agencies.
What?
Last week, Americans across the country watched the Republican Party melt down the moment it encountered its first test. For days, it
wasn't a meltdown. We all thought it was actually a lot of fun, and we're pretty happy with the result because we got some good things that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise, but okay.
Extremist wing of the party held the rest of their caucus hostage as they demanded a steep price for their support. And today, we have the first of their many demands on display. An open-ended investigation into whatever conspiracy theories may be headlining the right-wing echo chamber at the moment, with unchecked authority to undermine ongoing criminal and intelligence investigations.
Okay, so if we create a committee, just like the church committee that we talked about at the start of this segment, to go and actually ask questions of FBI officials, of DOJ officials, of DHS officials, and so on, that's going to undermine their ability to do their job, which up until this recent moment was basically being quarterbacks for the Democrats. So he doesn't want that to happen, obviously.
For example, the Select Committee can use its expansive authorities to protect Donald Trump, those who perpetrated fake elector schemes to overturn the 2020 presidential election, insurrectionists facing trials for their crimes, and other domestic terrorists. It aims to undermine the safeguards of our democracy and to embolden MAGA extremists who would rather see our institutions
That's their
fail
talking point, copy
than
and
to see
pasted.
Democrats and President Biden succeed. Make no mistake, the Destroy Democracy Subcommittee will enable...
The Destroy Democracy Subcommittee. They're all trying a bunch of different names on. So that's not as good. Destroy Democracy has a good alliteration, but it's not as good as the Insurrection Protection Committee. That's much better.
The House Republicans to interfere with the free operation of businesses they do not like, to inhibit the fight against domestic terrorism, and to settle political scores on behalf of Donald Trump.
All right, Jerry.
The Judiciary Committee has serious work to do. But rather than trying to solve the problems of the American people, this new subcommittee will expend untold time and money undermining our nation's law enforcement agencies, our justice system, and our intelligence community.
How much did your illegal
All
J6
for a
committee
political
cost?
stunt catering to the extremist wing of the Republican Party.
A political stunt.
I oppose this resolution. I encourage my colleagues to do the same. And I yield back the balance of my time.
But the January 6th Select Committee was perfectly legitimate. Everything was great. We loved it. This one's just a little different because we don't control it. That's from Jerry Nadler, waddling around Congress. Hopefully somebody has changed his diaper so he can walk a little bit more freely. Now, as we wrap up, the big question is, before we get to a quick refresher on what this bill looks like, what is the future of these people who are on their way out? We've got a post from the New York Post that tells us that people like Pencilneck and Omar and others are on their way out. New York Post reports, Kevin McCarthy confirms that the House panel is booting Schiff, Swalwell, and Omar. So they're all on their way out. Late on Monday, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy confirmed that he will make good on his pre-midterm pledge to remove 3 high-profile Democrats, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, Ilhan Omar, from their House committees. McCarthy told the Associated Press that he would move to strip the trio of their assignments, following through on a vow of payback for Democrats ousting Gosar, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and others from their panel during the last Congress. McCarthy vowed a year ago that he'd remove the 3 Democrats if they won, and they did. And so Stinky Swalwell and others are going to be off those committees, and the Republicans will now be in charge. And so let's see who may be a part of those committees, because this is the actual bill that was published. And we went through this in a little bit more detail previously, but now that it's passed, let's just take a look at the powers section. So remember, they established this committee. The composition mirrors very much what we saw in the other January 6th Select Committee. 13 members, 5 of whom shall be appointed in consultation with the minority leader, right? So this means 5 Democrats should be on this thing. 8 Republicans, 5 Democrats. Now, what ended up happening with the J6 committee is that they just really crossed that out. They put 2 Republicans on there. And so we ultimately had, there wasn't even 10. I think there was a total of 9 of them. I think it was 7 and 2. So this matched their resolution, and they didn't follow it. So we'll see if the Republicans follow it. And if the Republicans don't want to follow it, like if they only want to put 2 people on there and whoever they want, pick the most conservative Democrats that they want. The people who are going to say Joe Biden should be impeached, right? Go pick some red state, blue conservative or blue, conservative Democrat, put them on the committees. They would be totally within their power to do that. And the courts, I don't think could say anything about it, because they brought challenges in courts, and the courts just said, well, we defer. We've got separation of powers. The court said we can't cross that line, go into the House of Representatives and tell them how to conduct their internal affairs, right? Just like the courts wouldn't want the legislative branch, want Congress coming in there and telling them how to deliberate and how to manage their clerks and how to manage their offices. So the court said, well, we're not going to go in there. If they pass a House resolution and they, form their own committee, that's their own prerogative. We don't care. So the Republicans can literally do the same thing. Pass this resolution, say we control the House, put 2 loser, Democrats on there who are probably great Democrats, put them on there and make it just whatever type of committee they want. And they can just beat it to death over the next 2 years. Everything. Each member shall be treated as a member of the Committee on the Judiciary. They're going to investigate all sorts of stuff. The expansion of the executive branch, how they work, whether they're doing anything illegal, unethical in the executive branch, how they collect information about U.S. citizens, the laws that support the collection of information about citizens, any other civil liberty issues, and so on. The authority comes from the House rules, all detailed there for you. The committee is going to cease to exist 30 days after filing the final report. That's the end of it. And so you can see, very broad. And the Republicans are going to be in charge of all of it. and we're going to be very excited about what they produce for us now that it is passed. And of course, we will continue to cover this. Thank you for subscribing and sharing this show with your friends and family, inviting them to come and join us when we go live. We're rebuilding the informational supply chains here, and we'll continue to cover the great work of Jim Jordan on this very fun new weaponization of the federal government committee in Congress. Thank you for subscribing and following along, and we'll see you on the next one.